What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react and continue learning about mistakes tourists make in Norway, part 2. If you haven't seen part 1, feel free to go check that out, or stay right here where you are in part 2. That's perfectly fine as well. But in part 1, I basically learned a whole bunch of pretty shocking things about Norway, and I think a whole bunch of things that would really shock Americans visiting Norway. This included having to scan your ticket on the bus or public transportation. You have to scan your ticket or beep your ticket on a little machine. Like in America, we don't really have public transportation very much, and we certainly are not that technologically advanced that we have to scan or beep our ticket on the bus. And there were a couple of other things, like how early the stores close in Norway. My goodness. My goodness, what a difference. That might have been the biggest, most shocking difference. That would be a huge mistake that a lot of tourists make, not knowing that stores close pretty early in Norway, especially compared to the United States. Man, I was really shocked about this in part 1. I mean, in America, stores will stay open until midnight. A lot of stores will stay open till 8, 9, 10. Some stores stay open 24 hours a day, all day. They never close. So that would take a lot of getting used to, I think, for a lot of foreigners visiting Norway, getting used to that. And another one that is that Norway stopped selling alcohol at 6 p.m., which would just be the end of the world for Americans. That would just be too much for Americans to handle, honestly. And there were some other things like waiting in line when you're waiting for public transportation, waiting in line. Americans are terrible about waiting in line and staying in line. I could see that one as a huge mistake that a lot of American tourists make in Norway. And we kind of ended part 1 talking about taxis in Norway. And she was explaining how taxis are not a good idea to take in Norway, that they're just way too expensive, and you should do something else. So, with that being said, let's pick off where we left off and learn about taxis, how it would be a mistake to take a taxi in Norway.
The taxis in Norway are so freaking expensive.
I believe
For
it.
example,
I believe it. Like, I've heard everything is really expensive in Norway, so taxis would make a lot of sense.
I used to live maybe 5 minutes by car from the central station, Oslo Central Station.
Okay.
And one time I was so late to catch a plane that I just took the taxi was there and I just took the taxi.
Okay.
And for 5 minutes by car, I paid almost 30 euros.
Wow. Man, that seems like exploitative at that point. So she she had to take a taxi. She had to. She did not want to. She was forced to take a taxi. And for 5 minutes, like a 5-mile or 5-minute drive, 30 euros, which is kind of like 30 American dollars, I guess. 30. That's absurd. That's actually crazy. Okay, that makes sense. Avoid taxis. Does Norway, I was asking, does Norway have Uber in part 1? Because Uber is usually not as expensive, but maybe it is in Norway. I don't know.
Next thing that tourists normally don't know when they visit Norway is that even when it's winter and it's super cold outside,
Yeah.
inside every house, every store, every cafe, every restaurant, everything that's indoors, it's super warm. Like warm that you can be with a t-shirt sometimes.
What? What? How? Wait. What is this Norwegian technology that's being hidden from us? So, I mean, I imagine it's just that Norwegians run a heater? Like they turn on the heat? Or is there something else to this? Are the houses, like, and restaurants really well insulated? The funny thing is, in the United States, for most of the year, it's pretty comfortable in temperature here. It's kind of in the middle. And, it can get very hot in the summer, and it can be pretty cold in the winter, depending on where you live in the United States. But it seems like even when winter comes in America, nobody keeps it super hot inside of their house or a restaurant, or you still have to wear your jacket. You still have to bundle up, even if you're going inside, or else you're going to be cold. But she's saying in Norway, Norwegians do a fantastic job really, really heating up the inside of buildings, which I'm wondering, is there some kind of special trick to this, or just using more energy?
It's super warm, like warm that you can be with a t-shirt sometimes.
Wow.
So tourists make the mistake of having a lot of warm clothes.
Yeah.
And when they come in, they just have like a wool sweater and some sweater underneath that one, and they don't have like a t-shirt or something nice to wear indoors.
Wow. This is really good advice. I would never have thought of this. This is definitely something that American tourists would definitely do, because in the winter, I expect it to be pretty cold inside of buildings. But then in Norway, you have to be ready to take your jacket off and have like a t-shirt or something, or you're just going to be roasting, or you're just going to be way too hot. That's kind of a nice problem to have, actually. Wow. That's really cool and sounds very cozy.
And that's a big mistake. What you have to do is dress in layers, so when you go outside you are like super warm, and when you are inside you can take off layers until you feel comfortable. Next.
This is not the first time I have heard about layers in Norway. Seems like a very, very, like a Norwegian strategy. Wear layers so that you're prepared for any temperature. And I now understand why.
Two things are about roads and like driving a car, having like a road trip in Norway.
Okay.
First of all, there are a lot of velocity meters thing that control how fast you are driving, and you will definitely get a ticket if you are driving, even if it's just 10 kilometers more than the speed limit. So you need to be very careful with that. And there.
Whoa. Wow, this is huge. These are really good tips. These are really good tips, and I think this applies to Americans really, really a lot. In America, like, people are really, really bad drivers. Everyone is speeding. Most people are speeding. Most people are pretty aggressive drivers here. And it's actually pretty normal for people to drive 5 or 10 miles over the speed limit. And that's actually considered okay. It's not really, you don't really get pulled over for that. And we certainly do not have many speed cameras that are cameras that measure your car's speed and give you a ticket. We don't really have that at all. Maybe we need that. The more that I think about it, I actually feel like Americans, we probably really need that technology more. Because Americans just are crazy drivers. And I can say that as an American, and yeah, we don't really care about safety as much. It's kind of sad, actually, when I think about it. This sounds a lot better.
They're everywhere. Another thing is that in many roads, it does not say how fast you can drive. Like, there's no speed limit signs, or if there are, they are super far away from each other.
What?
Or sometimes it's like, oh, you can go faster than 60 now from here on, but you don't know how much faster you can go. So it's a...
What? I don't understand that. Is there something I don't understand here? How do you know the speed limit? How would you know how fast to go if there's no speed limit signs? Or if it just says go faster than 60, it's like okay, I'm gonna go 500 miles an hour. I'm a little confused by this one.
A little bit confusing even for us still when we're driving. Yeah. I'm always asking but what's the speed limit? But what's the speed? Because it's very difficult to understand, and you don't.
What is this? Is this something that Norwegians understand? growing up in Norway? Because as an American, as a foreigner, I really depend on speed limit signs a lot to know. Now, Americans don't always obey. We don't always obey the speed limit signs. We go 10 miles over them, but we still like have a general idea. But this would kind of scare me a little bit, not knowing. Kind of like her.
I want to go over the speed limit because there's a lot of these cameras. And the other thing is that a lot of roads close during winter, and this is a big problem with tourists, I'm sure, because it happened to me, it happened to Daniel, my boyfriend, and with many other people we know, that when you come to Norway to have a road trip and you rent a car and you want to go from point A to B and you put it on Google Maps and Google Maps just says like, oh, it's going to take 1 hour from point A to B, and you plan according to that, and then in the middle of the road there's like a blog saying like, this road is closed due to weather conditions.
Oh, that is really good to know as well. That's very practical information. That's very good. I feel like a lot of tourists should know this if they're going to be driving, that there's a decent chance of roads being closed in the winter. I feel like this is because in Norway the roads can be a little more treacherous because of the Norwegian landscape. Funny enough, in the United States, like, especially in some of the states that are pretty flat, and especially compared to Norway, with its amazing mountains and crazy cliffs and geography, American roads are pretty simple, so we probably don't close them very much. And Norwegians, maybe you have to in Norway more because of the ice and the snow. That actually makes sense to me.
Or due to heavy snow or something like that. And you have to go all the way back and take another route. Now, we always have to check if the road is open, how's the weather. There's really like big regions in Norway that completely close because of snow during winter.
Oh, this is very substantial. Like, this can block your access to an entire region of Norway. That's amazing. This is more important than I thought. Is there a way to, like, look it up online, what roads are closed, so you know beforehand? Or I would actually think Google would be smart enough. Google Maps would be smart enough to know if the roads are closed, actually.
1 hour trip can easily become like 4 hour trips.
Wow.
So, yeah. Next, three things are about money. First, there's not a lot of ATMs in Norway.
Oh.
It's actually difficult to find an ATM to withdraw money.
Really? There's not a lot of ATMs. That's so interesting. Norway is definitely just more advanced. Just ahead. More futuristic, I swear. I think Norwegians don't use cash as much. But in America, there's still a lot of people who enjoy using real physical money in America. So there are ATMs everywhere. There's ATMs all over the place, and people use them, but not in Norway. And I'm guessing that's because Norwegians use more digital, like credit cards and debit cards and their phone to pay for stuff, right?
Second, you don't really need money because you can pay every single thing with your card, your credit card, even just if it's like 1 kroner, they will accept the card. And
see, I love that. I actually love that. I wish the United States was more like Norway in this regard, because I love using my card or to pay on my phone. But not everything has that. A lot of stuff is starting to change to where you can pay digitally, but not everything. So it would be nice if it was just everything, like Norway seems to have done.
And last thing, no, it's not euros in Norway. You pay with kroner, Norwegian kroner. That was
I actually know that one. I actually knew that one. You pay with kroner. Funny enough, that's actually good advice for tourists, because I had never heard of kroner before until I started learning more about Norway on YouTube. So that's actually really valuable. Most Americans would probably assume Norway uses euros, actually. So that's actually a valuable tip.
Everything I could think of about like mistakes tourists make. If you have other suggestions, other fun suggestions, just let us know in the comments down below. And if you like this video, give it a massive.
Wow, that was very good. That was really good. That video was by Mon Ami, and I gotta give it a like. She had some really good tips. I feel like a lot of these tips are things you can only learn if you move to Norway as a foreigner, as a tourist. You kind of have to experience it for yourself to even learn some of this stuff, because Norwegians are just kind of used to it all and know how everything works. So I actually really appreciated her point of view and sharing some of the mistakes she's learned about. Are there any comments here about mistakes tourists make in Norway? High-end bottled water Voss is Norwegian tap water. Okay. My suggestion for the biggest mistake is to dress improperly for hiking trips, such as Trolltunga. There have been hundreds of rescue missions by the Red Cross due to ill-prepared foreign tourists. Yeah, people who are not prepared for hiking. They don't dress properly and they probably don't have the correct equipment. Yeah, because Norway is a really, really big hiking country. And a lot of tourists, especially Americans, I think, can relate to this. Probably would come really unprepared. That's a good one. That's a good one. Mistakes tourists make going to Oslo when you want to see the beautiful fjords and mountains. Yes. Yes, this is like just going to New York City in the United States, or just going to London in the United Kingdom. Just going to Oslo is, yes, that is something amazing you should do, but the whole rest of the country is still out there for you to explore. There's so much stuff in all of Norway, outside of Oslo as well. That's amazing. Fjords and mountains, yeah, that's good advice actually, because I bet a lot of people plan their vacation to Norway and just say, okay, I'm going to go to Oslo, and that's good enough. Where it's like, they probably want to see some of the natural wonders in Norway as well, outside of Oslo. Yeah, that's good advice, actually. The speed limit in Norway is 80 kilometers an hour on ordinary roads, and 50 kilometers an hour in cities. Other speed limits is marked with an actual speed. Thank you! Oh my gosh, thank you for typing this. I was wondering about this. Thank goodness. So there is a rule, kind of. That's why there's not a lot of speed limit signs. You're supposed to know this. The speed limit on regular roads is 80, and in the city, it's 50. And besides that, if it's different, they'll have a sign up. Is this true? Because this seems very helpful. This seems very, very helpful. Okay, I think it's true. Okay, perfect. Because I was actually really, really wondering about that with the speed limit. I was a little scared, but okay, much better. This was great. It's so fun to honestly learn about all these little things that are so different in Norway. And yeah, it causes tourists to make mistakes because we don't know things, but it's also part of the fun. So I enjoyed this quite a bit. Anyway, if you enjoyed this as well, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Norway and Norwegian culture, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.